Hello, my dear students. Our today's topic is Grave Errors of the East, page number 97. In the previous session, we discussed Orientalist, Munshi, vernacular language, and here we can discuss grave errors of the East. And here we can discuss some British people. They were strongly criticized the Orientalist. Orientalist gave more stress on studies of Eastern languages, Eastern literature. But other British people, they strongly against it. That we are going to study here. From the early 19th century, many British officials, they started to criticize the Orientalist idea of learning, Orientalist vision of learning. According to them, the knowledge of the East was full of errors, full of mistakes and unscientific thought. They criticized our knowledge and our thought. According to them, Eastern literature was non-serious and light-hearted. Because of this, they argued that it was wrong on the part of the British to spend so much effort in encouraging the study of Arabic and Sanskrit language and literature. So, what was their comment? What was their argument? It was wrong, the part of the British, to spend more time for studying the Eastern languages, the Eastern literature. And among these critics, one is our James Mill. James Mill, we discussed early in our first chapter, who divided India as in three, that ancient India, Hindu India, medieval India, Muslim India, and modern India, British India. See that? His division. He was one of the critics of this Orientalist. He declared that the British effort should not be to teach what the natives wanted or what the Indians wanted, what they respected in order to please them and win a place in their heart. So according to James Mill, the British effort was not to teach what the natives wanted or what pleased them to win a place in their heart. So according to him, the aim of education ought to be to teach what was useful and practical. So what was his comment? The aim of education ought to be to teach what was useful and practical. Underline this. According to James Mill, aim of education was to teach what was useful and practical. So Indians should be made familiar with the scientific and technical advances that the West had made, rather than with the poetry and sacred literature of the Orient. So what was his comment? You listen here. He wanted to teach the scientific and technical advances that the Western had made, not the poetry and the sacred literature of the Eastern part or Eastern countries. That was the comment of or the argument of James Mill. So dear students, go through this paragraph, how James Mill criticized the Orientalists. By the 1830s, the attack on the Orientalists became sharper. That means those who are supporting this English education and criticizing the Oriental or Eastern education, it is increased. And one of the most outspoken and influential of such critics of the time was Thomas Babington Macaulay. So Thomas Babington Macaulay, underline that, he was an important critics of Orientalist learning or Oriental learning. He saw India as an uncivilized country that needed to be civilized. According to Babington Macaulay, India is an uncivilized country. So he wants to civilize India. No branch of Eastern knowledge, according to him, could be compared to what England had produced. So he give more stress on Western education, English education, and he argued that there was no knowledge or no Eastern knowledge to compare what England had produced. Who could deny, declared Macaulay that by the 1830s, the attack on the Orientalists became sharper. That means those who are supporting this English education and criticizing the Oriental or Eastern education, it is increased. And one of the most outspoken and influential of such critics of the time was Thomas Babington Macaulay. So Thomas Babington Macaulay, underlined that he was an important critics of Orientalist learning or Oriental learning. He saw India as an uncivilized country that needed to be civilized. According to Babington Macaulay, India is an uncivilized country. So he wants to civilize India. No branch of Eastern knowledge, according to him, could be compared to what England had produced. So he give more stress on Western education, English education, and he argued that there was no knowledge or no Eastern knowledge to compare what England had produced. Who could deny, declared Macaulay that a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. Just you underline these cuttings. So Macaulay in his minute on Indian education, he wrote that a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. You know that Orientalists, they started studying Indian literature and Arabic, other languages. At the same time, this Indian literature totally, this Macaulay compared to a single shelf of an European library. So he argued that, or he urged that the British government in India stop wasting public money in promoting Oriental learning, for it was no practical use. So what a criticism here. According to him, our literature is equal to a single shelf of a good library of Europe. And he argued that there was no money to wasting. There was no money to waste studying Eastern languages or Eastern literature. So British government want to stop to spend the public money for what? To spend it's or promoting Oriental learning or Eastern learning. With great energy and passion, Macaulay stressed, or he gave more stress on the need to teach the English language. So Macaulay, he want to teach English language to Indians. He felt that knowledge of English would allow Indians to read some of the finest literature the world had produced. So what was his opinion? His opinion, the teach English language to Indians, and when Indians learn English language, it helped them to read some of the finest literature the world had produced. It would make them aware of the developments in Western science and philosophy. So if Indians are able to read English language, Indians, they can read Western science and philosophy. So teaching of English could thus be a way of civilizing the people. So what is his first opinion to civilize the people of India? Teaching of English, changing their taste, values and culture. When Indians learn English, sure, there is a change in their taste, values and culture. That is the opinion of Thomas Macaulay. So here, in the Macaulay's minutes on Indian education, he gave more stress on imparting English education on Indian natives. And he felt that this English education helped the Indians to obtain world knowledge. Obtain world knowledge, that means they could read the literature, the important or finest literature that the world had produced. And it also helped them to know about the developments in Western science and philosophy. So in this way, easily English, they can civilize the people of India, change their taste, values and culture. That is the opinion of Thomas Macaulay. And following Macaulay's minute on English education, the English Education Act of 1835 was introduced. So what happens? The English Education Act of 1835 was passed. And the decision was to make English the medium of instruction. So here, according to this English Education Act, what is the medium of education? English is the medium of education, especially for higher education, and to stop the promotion of Oriental institutions like the Calcutta Madrasa and Benares Sanskrit College. So, according to this English Education Act, they stop the promotion of Eastern learning, Oriental institutions like the Calcutta Madrasa and Benares Sanskrit College. These institutions were seen as temples of darkness that were falling of themselves into decay. Into decay means into destruction. So they compare this Calcutta Madrasa and Benares Sanskrit College that was started by the Orientalists as temples of darkness that were falling of themselves into decay. English textbooks now began to be produced for schools. So what happened after this English Education Act of 1835? English, that is the medium of instruction. English textbooks began to produced for schools. So dear students, here we can conclude. Thank you. Have a nice day.